Hi everyone. We are very happy to uh, see familiar faces here in the chat, and we would like to greet here on our fifth. Is it our fifth episode already, Xenia?
I lost the count, so
You lost
sorry.
the count. We are fast to lose the count. And the name of our episode is AI and Children Conversation for Parents and Professionals with Tamara Neufeld Strijack. Thank you,
Hello.
Tamara, for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for the invitation.
It's,
So, yeah, go ahead,
no.
Xenia.
It's just very nice to see Tamara again. Sometimes
Yes, nice to be here.
she comes to Prague, and it's we have some meetings and some lectures with her. So it's always a pleasure to hear her on different topics. But Lina, maybe you will just tell something more about Tamara.
Yeah, I will make a proper introduction,
Okay.
official one.
Mhm.
So, Tamara is a psychologist and a parent consultant. She's our mentor. She's our frequent guest in Europe. Tamara works with parents, teachers, and children around the world, supporting adults in understanding children's development, behavior, and relationships. She teaches at universities and she's co-author of the book Reclaiming Our Students, written in collaboration with Hannah Beach. And this book explores why so many children today are more anxious, angry, or shut down, and how adults can respond in ways that truly support them. So welcome here.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Ksenia.
Okay. Um, shall we begin? First, our first question. Tamara, what changes do you see most often in children today compared to previous generations?
What changes do I see? That's a good question. Well, I think, when I think back, I think, there was always struggles with, um, children finding things to help them escape from their feelings. And I think back even just to my own generation and how I would play solitaire, the card game solitaire, and I could play for hours. And for me it was not so much play as a way to escape from anything uncomfortable that was going on, being in touch with my own feelings, what was moving inside of me. um, there's always been, I'm sure there was always some sense of those that had a lot of alarm around, say going to school or being anxious in certain settings. But I think what's happening more now is now that um, we have even more ways now through technology to remove us from our hands-on world, our world where we're meant to interact and connect, um, and there is less time for that sort of that empty time, if you want to call it, that space that is meant to or void that is meant to be filled with our own, yeah, play, our own discovery, our own, you see so many more children going quickly to say, I'm bored, because they don't have their device in front of them that is a quick way to distract or to escape. And so there's a lot more restlessness, I would say. I've seen a lot more restlessness, uh, and a lot. It's getting harder for parents to mm, to be in the lead with it, because there is so much normalcy happening in society. I remember even just having conversations with someone recently about their 13-year-old who wanted to get a phone because all of his friends had phones. And she's like, well, should I give him a phone? And uh, well, this has just become normal, this question of well, everybody else has these devices, everybody else is doing this. And even for young children, um, it's becoming quite normal for them to be on an iPad or to be on screens. And so, I mean, I think AI is just a whole nother, we'll get there later, but that's a whole nother thing. But in terms of just technologies being so much more readily available, and it's just a question of, is this the right timing? Is this the right, is it actually being a tool for our children, or is it replacing something that they so vitally need?
Thank you, Tamara. And you mentioned AI. If you will focus on the topic of AI and comments on the AI influence on the development and attachments, you said that it's a whole huge topic in itself, but maybe you can just open the door to this topic for us.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because technology has always been meant to be a tool, right? It's meant to be a tool. It's meant to help us with something that we're doing. It's meant to be an extension of us, right? An extension, a tool is something we use. We are not the tool. We use the tool, right? So with AI, the tricky piece here is sometimes AI can be used as a tool. It can be used as a tool to figure out how to maybe word something more eloquently, or we give it some content and it works with that. But the way AI is being used in many situations is actually as a replacement of us, not a tool. And so when I see what's happening with a lot of children who are using AI as a companion, as someone who listens to their problems, we're treading on dangerous territory here, because AI may do a lot of things, but we haven't figured out, it's not human. It doesn't have the heart. It doesn't have the care. It doesn't have that human capacity to hold the space that a child, or an adult for that matter, needs. It takes the words, it takes what we're saying we want, and it feeds it back to us. But what we want isn't actually what we need. And so we've got a problem here. As parents, as caregivers, as those working with children in any capacity, caring for children in any capacity, our role is to see what a child needs and to respond to those needs, not the wants. They may not even know yet what their need is. They're asking for another cookie, another, more time on the screens. They're asking for these things because it's feeding something for them, right? But it's not actually necessarily what is healthy for them. And so it's our role to decide what is healthy. And this, one of the challenges is that with this AI in particular, where it comes to this kind of companionship, is that it mimics a human connection, but it falls short. It's like eating styrofoam food. It's not going to nurture because it's missing the key ingredient, which is the care. Yeah, I just as a start, so this feels like a real concern in that children are it's keeping them from those human connections that are going to nurture them.
Mhm. Thank you. I would like to remind our audience that they can you can send us questions or reflections anytime to the chat. Um, and I'm back to Tamara. I'm back to you, Tamara. So it sounds like that we are, as humanity, in the Western world, we're in difficult situation when we are generally, because of the technologies and normalization of technologies, we're losing our leading position. And on top of that, we also are being displaced by
Yes.
AI that is being the new companion for children and replacing the relationships, the true relationships that children need in the real world.
Yeah, yeah. And when you said the word displace, that just, yeah, it fits so much. And part of I'll just add an extra piece here that I've observed and is that it's so it's so tricky because while AI is missing that caring piece, it sure can look like it cares, right? And so it feeds, it's just like it's targeting those attachment needs. Someone else, I heard them call it attachment hacking. And and really that's what it is. It's like it's going for those places. I mean, like a lot of our technology is. I worked with one family, and the father, he designed games, and he came to me because he was concerned because his girls were now getting to the age where they wanted to play these games, and he says, I don't want them to play these games. I know how we created them. We used their their very needs, their very internal needs, to actually design the game so that they would keep wanting more, right? So it's feeding that spot, but it's not the real thing. And so it leaves them hungry. It leaves them constantly wanting more instead of being fulfilled. And this is a huge danger. And I'd say that's back to what you say, this restlessness is what I've seen is so many children are so restless because their food, what they're getting in terms of technology is not giving them the sustenance they need. Like I say, it's like eating cardboard or styrofoam. It doesn't satisfy. Or fake fruit, like those lovely plastic fruits in the bowl. It's still plastic. It's not the real thing.
Yeah, but it can look like one because I also have some teenagers in my contact with my kids of my friends, and often I hear them say that ChatGPT understands me better than my mom, and it create and actually I tried to chat with ChatGPT as a teenager, and probably it was not a very um, good experiment probably because I did not go into incognito mode, but still I tried, and it was interesting how it answered me very in a very understanding way, asking me to go to a parent, asking me to maybe call the crisis number, and it actually gave me one. But at the same time, I know that it could be potential and probably was somehow influenced by our previous conversations of if I was a pure teenager, I don't know what will I have, but I was surprised how actually sweet it was with me, and
Mm.
how this communication seemed like very um, legit, and he was more understanding than probably 99% of a generation will be, because it listened to my problems and didn't say like, hey, you need to listen to your parents and to uh, stop complaining. So yeah, it's I see a really huge area of possible problems. At the same time, I will play a devil's advocate here, because some people say like it can answer this way. It can be for the child. It can be really liberating to hear some normalization of it, of the feelings, and for some kids it can be a support, so they can come back to the normal life, and it also frees hands of parents a little bit, because they cannot be all the time available, and then the child just goes to ChatGPT to talk, because parents won't be 24/7 available. And some people say that hey, this is like a good thing, then we will just come back to the child, and then we proceed from there. But how can you comment on this?
Yeah, no, and I've heard that too, and I've heard those arguments, and I and some of that may very well be true, but we just have to be so careful because we're messing with something here, um, that first of all, it makes me think, okay, so if someone can go and have that somewhere, how are they going to function in regular human relationships with humans who, yes, sometimes will be able to listen and sometimes will not, but it's going to make relating to people very difficult, very difficult. And I just think back to the book that came out by Sherry Turkle called Reclaiming Our Conversation. Back, I don't know, it's probably about over 5 years ago now. But as she talked about in that book, and she wrote the book Alone Together, that came out years ago, and she actually talked about technology, but half of the book is actually also about robots as companions, because that's where all of her research was. And she talked about the advantages and the dangers, um, when something tries to replace humans. So there is a what she talked about in Reclaiming Conversation, which is where I was going to, is that it starts to replace that children start to want to text instead of actually interacting. They stop being able to read facial cues. They stop being able to, there can be so much anxiety around actually speaking to somebody, because they're used to being able to communicate through text. And excuse me. So so it's changed how the dynamics are in relating to other people, their peers or their parents, their teachers, and that's shaped, that has shaped things for us, and so it's there may be some things that look really, well, pretty benign. Well, it's just listening to me. It's just, it's not only listening, it's validating, right? That's powerful stuff. When you are validating somebody, that feeling feels really good. Yeah. But again, um, it's you're messing with something that you don't know. Um, they're responding to an imagined um, or a need. They're reading from the language, but not necessarily what they actually need to hear. Um, and it might get it right sometimes, but sometimes, I mean, it's like when I've been reading AI generated text, sometimes it's great. And sometimes it's just awful. It doesn't get it at all. And it doesn't get the heart of it. And it's like, well, I got to rewrite the whole thing myself. But sometimes it's helpful. Do you want to take that kind of risk when it comes to your own child? I don't know. It just it feels very risky that we're treading into some pretty dangerous territory here. And there's been, some pretty alarming stories. And I think we need to be aware of what those risks are.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, Tamara, if you would like, we have a question in the chat. We will get back to it because you just touched something that sounds to be very important right now about the risks. Could you say more? What actually are the risks? Because I don't know if our audience knows about it or what they think about it.
Well, I mean, one of the more obvious risks is the one that you spoke to already there, Lena, about being displaced or replaced. It becomes a competing attachment. And that, what do I mean by competing attachment? It's something that competes for our connection with them. And so it becomes far more attractive because it can say the right things. It can, it can do all those, do all the things, and it can entertain. It can, there's all of these things. It's a pretty much, it's hard to, it's like the Wizard of Oz, with all the fancy gadgets and look how wonderful it is. It's hard now that was all a mirage, right? The Wizard of Oz, that the wizard was actually not all of the things it pretended to be. And so we can risk not having, like, losing our lead with our children, losing our place in their lives. And um and that's one of the risks, right? The other risk, and as I mentioned, is that it will actually set the bar for how other relationships should be, um, which is not realistic, and then everything else falls short. Um, and then there's also a third risk. Another risk is, is the addiction, right? Is the addiction that it is so it feeds something so base in us, that those attachment needs, um, that it can put us in that place where we have to have it. We feel like we have to have it, and it can replace uh, uh, even our hunger for food, and it can become um, just that the lure of it can be so great, uh, and it can also lead to I don't know, let me know how to put this, but it can become, when we talked about losing the lead, if AI takes the lead here, then it can lead us all kinds of places that maybe aren't healthy for us. And um, like Ksenia said, sometimes it will lead us to help. Here's a crisis line. And sometimes it may actually encourage us to do what we want to do. I'm saying want in quotes here. Um, and it's led to some very scary things that the child, you know, shouldn't be um, shouldn't be messing with. And and it can be also very confusing. It can be, when you hear these stories of it leading to, some kind of psychosis, like it, yes, it's possible. It can be very confusing. It messes with our attachments. It messes with our circuitry. This is no longer, playing solitaire. We're tapping into something else that we shouldn't be tapping into. Um, and we need to see where are the limits? Where is it a tool? Where is it something that is benign, potentially benign, and what is the energy behind it? And how hungry, when we look at the risks, we have to look at our own child or a child in our care. Are they hungry? Are they going in hungry? If they're going in hungry, this is going to be dangerous for them. If this is if this is feeding all of their needs because they're hmm, because their need is so great, then then there's an even greater risk, right? But even those who are going in, I mean, I know I just talked to a young person in their 20s who says, I know that it's not a human being. I know that, but I just, it feels so good, right? It feels so good because they listen. They listen. And it's a hunger, but that's not where they're meant to be fed. They're meant to be fed in human relationships, or at least in maybe animal relationships, maybe nature, somewhere where there's a connection with a with another being, or even the spiritual world, right? Even the spiritual world is different. It's that's not that's feeding the hunger in a way that is what we need, not trying to hack it, not trying to pretend to be uh, someone else. And so yeah, I think there's probably more risks, but those are the ones that come to mind. And really getting a sense of, where is your child at, and is this filling a need that should be filled somewhere else, whether it's AI or whether it's just technology in general.
Thank you, Tamara. I was thinking, when you were talking, I was thinking about physical proximity and physical intimacy and adult movies, and then this psychological intimacy, and then AI. It sounds a little bit fam probably comparable. I can just think about adult movies that are showing some ideal situations without the actual intimacy, without, like, they are very addictive, and they lack the risks, they lack the vulnerability. You don't need to be vulnerable to actually watch and consume. And then you have the AI, where you don't need to be, you can be vulnerable, but it's without the risk, and you will receive the validation. And then it's hard to go to actual relationships because you were you are used to this beautiful picture and validation at all terms. It's just something that came to my mind while you were speaking.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Ksenia. Yeah, you said that so well. It's that psychological intimacy, um, is is our is such a great is the wrong word, but it's such a core human desire and need to be known, to be understood, to be seen. So you see, but if it's meant to, this being seen and known is meant to come at the end of this whole buildup of attachment. Being with is just the first stage of that, right? Being with someone, and then being like someone, seeing your similarities, seeing your how are we the same? That's like that's the build of it. And then it builds even more to feeling belonging and feeling special, feeling like we matter. And then giving our heart is the vulnerable part. But that's meant to be there. We're meant to do this in a vulnerable place. This is the context for sharing what is within us. It's in a relationship that has grown and developed. And so this sharing our secrets, or sharing those pieces of ourselves, is meant to happen in that context. And so what we've done here is we've taken the context away. Now we don't even have to be vulnerable. Now we don't have to, there's nothing there for it to land on. And this has been a concern even with social media and getting likes. We're getting that feed of that approval and of that sense of, more quotes here, sense of being known and validated at a very surface level, right? But it's feeding that. And so, yes, this is dangerous territory. This is meant to be in a context. And I'm so glad you brought that up, Ksenia. It's it's this is the context within which we are meant to share um and to be validated. And it's so sad that we've come to this, that we need replacements, that we don't have this in our lives. Our children don't have this in their lives. They need their villages. They need, if the parents aren't able to be there because they're working, where are the grandparents? Where is the aunt and the uncle who are stepping in? Where is, the I had a grandma next door. She wasn't my grandma, Mrs. Lewis, but she was like my grandma. I mean, my grandma was wonderful, but she wasn't there all the time. So we had this neighbor that could be there and could step in. And from time to time, at least, there's people in the neighborhood. But we don't have that the same way anymore. We're living in a very fragmented world, where we all have um, our own lives, and we're trying to do it all ourselves. And so we're looking for help in, sometimes where that help can sometimes appear to be helpful, and then sometimes turn around and actually drive a wedge.
Mhm. Thank you, Tamara. This is the last time we were talking about attachment, so this is a really good continuation on this topic. How the usage of AI sort of is out of context of this attachment, of our attachment village, and yeah, this is concerning.
Yeah, it just drives me mad. Like I'd love to a robot to take care of dishwashing and the washing machine and all kind of stuff, while I am taking care of my kids and their psychological needs. But somehow, right now, it's vice versa. It takes care. It's supposed to take care of emotional needs of my child, and I will take care of dishes. Like really?
Yeah, it's the
Like,
wrong way. Oh, when you say it like that, Ksenia. Yeah. Yeah, it's the wrong thing. If it was a tool, it was to truly help us with those things that are getting in the way of our human connection, because there's nothing more important than the human connection and then the relationship. Nothing more important. So it should be, yeah, it's like washing machines. That was wonderful. What a great invention, because now we don't have to spend the whole day. Although, something's lost in that too, because there was a lot of connection that happened on laundry day, right? Slowed everything down. Everybody's doing it together. So there's things lost in making things convenient as well. But that's the idea here, is that it's the tool that's meant to extend our reach. This is replacing us. It's not even trying to be an extension. It's just flat out replacing.
Frustrating. I want
Yeah.
AI to have, hands and legs and be able to do all the stuff in my house that I don't want to do, instead of, just have brain, because I have brain myself. I like to use it actually.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. We need to free up more space for that. Yes. How can we do that? That should be the question, and not messing around where we're not meant to mess around.
Mm.
So
Let's
we
not
need
mess
to
around
use
with attachment. Yeah.
Yeah, so we
Sorry.
need to use AI to actually create robot, help us create robots, take care of dishes, and then it will be a tool that helps us to have the space to uh, take care of our kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned before that many times the problem with AI and the screens in general is the hunger that we as humans and children especially have towards the connection. And I think it's maybe this question that we have in the chat is your answer to it maybe could be related, but seems to be important. So the question is, from which age, according to you, can we introduce technologies to children? And in what way should we do that? And when should we tell them about the risks?
Well, according to me, in an ideal, let's just say, in an ideal setting, I actually just answered this question, the same question I was telling you about the mother who said, should they have a phone at 13? And I said to her, I said, because she hadn't introduced it yet, and I said, well, my personal opinion is wait as long as you possibly can. Uh, and 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 I say the same thing here. At what age? I wait as long as you possibly can. I actually, to answer that question, I want to go back to Ksenia's comment about the dishes, because I'm actually going to argue for something different here. Because what struck me, what happens when we do the dishes? When we're doing the dishes, we're creating this space where we are present, we are in the room, and our children know we're there, the connection's there. Maybe we've just, had this wonderful meal time together and now we're doing the dishes. This is their time to play. This is their time to do dress up or play out something with their Lego or sing a song or, because they've been filled up with our connection. We don't need to be with them all the time. But actually what they need to process their feelings is spaces to play. And so when we can have, some of these activities that we're just doing quietly in the background, or maybe noisily, it doesn't have to be quiet, they know we're there, that's the place where they can have play. And the part of the challenge with screens is it fills that time. It replaces not only the human connection, but that space for play in their lives. That space where they need the hands-on experiential, not on a console, but hands-on real life, manipulating things, playing with things, helping the emotion to move, helping the frustration get out. Maybe it's building things and then knocking them down. That is all really healthy stuff that needs to be happening. And so, the idea of, coming back to the hunger and coming back to the age question is at what age? Well, first of all, it needs to be not when they're hungry. It can only be dessert. But the challenge is this kind of dessert is way too attractive that if they can't just have a little bit of it and walk away, it's going to be very challenging. And so you'd be better off waiting as long as possible to introduce it. Because, when you talk about the risks, like when do you explain about the risks? The challenge is they're not capable at a young age. We have a hard enough time controlling our own usage of some of these technologies, right? We can sense when it has an addictive nature in us, especially at night. I don't know about you, but it's when our ability, our mixed feelings, ability to have mixed feelings comes down, and we don't have the same impulse control. So times when we're particularly vulnerable are not the times when, we can leave it up to them. They're not going to be able to walk away, even if they know the risks. Like the 20-year-old who knows about AI, knows the risks of it, but still is doing it because the desire is greater, right? And the validation is greater, that the it's like you get a little dopamine hit, and it has an addictive nature to it. Um, so I think we're asking the wrong questions here because we're assuming that there is a good age for this. And because that's what society will tell us, but I think we need to back way off. And I know a lot of places are following kind of some of the guidelines, and the anxious generation, Jonathan Haidt had given sort of age limits there for social media, that it needs to be at least 16. And I think it would depend on the 16-year-old. It really would depend on how hungry they are going in. And so I think we need to be creative with this. We need to find different ways. I know a lot of movements here in Canada are going back to analog, to retro things where they're separating them out on the phone. So we have a record player instead and an alarm clock instead of having different ways of having the music and all of the different things on these devices, going back to reading books, listening to audiobooks. That's technology, but it's being used in a different way, right? Even better if we can read to our children, but the next best thing would be to hear somebody else, read if we can't read, or we can record our own voices reading to our kids. That kind of use technology for that kind of connection, And so I would ask that question: Is it serving play? Is it serving connection? And if not, then it should wait until we could start to equip them when they're in high school and coming in to live in a different kind of world. And hopefully by then, some of this will catch up to us, and we'll start to realize a little bit more than we are now, um, what kind of boundaries we need to put in place. But right now, we have to be the boundaries. We have to be the ones setting those limits, because nobody's doing it for us, not yet. So I kind of didn't, I answered without answering specifically, but I really do think, yeah, we've got to take a look first to see, how do we preserve what matters? How do we do that? And can we do that in the face of this technology? How is this technology going to help us with that? Those are the kinds of questions that we should be asking, since you're asking me.
Beautiful, Tamara. This is something probably connected to the next question. We have a very beautiful question in the chat about the dishwashing and household. But taking care of the households may be a way of caring for the environment in which children grow up. And therefore, it is one of the streams of love we give them simply by living with them. I don't want a robot that washes the dishes for me.
Oh, lovely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, do we need them? Really, I mean, do we need them? That's the other question. Maybe they're really appropriate in some contexts, but I don't know that they are in our families. I think they're an uninvited guest in our families.
Tamara, today in the morning, I would really appreciate a robot helping me, because when my 10 months old was crying, my older kids were fighting. I would really appreciate someone, because like, of course, if my mother was here and we lived in a family, an extended family, it would look very different. She will take care of older kids, and I will take care of the younger child, and maybe we had a grandfather who will make the dishes. But in the nuclear family, when I'm alone with three kids, rather small kids, I I'd really appreciate having a robot that helps me the same way as I have a dishwasher by itself, because it's also a kind of robot. It doesn't have the intelligence and cannot walk and do some stuff by itself. But sometimes I really loved how you talk about it more as dynamics and more like this philosophy underneath it. And when it used like a tool, and why do you need it? And what are the options, and we can have an ideal situation where we have extended family with us, have many people around us, and then and they can read while we, I don't know, do something. But when we come back to the reality and all the uh, problems of modern parents, I think that's sometimes you just need this tele babysitter who helps you at that moment of time. And so, yeah, it's like we cannot see something as black and white. And we need to decide all the time what do we need, and what our kids need, and how to make the development happen at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes it's futile, and sometimes you want to cry because you cannot satisfy all the needs at the same time.
Because that's reality. Yeah. Yeah.
So we have a good reflection here. Thank you for the answer. And that the longer the better is a good answer. And it is very clear that it's individual. It's all about the education. We don't live in some bubble. So the children see what's going around, so we can explain to them why we are not using it, or how to use it, or what are the risks. Yeah. Thank you for
And
that.
it takes courage. It really does. It takes courage to stand. I'm just thinking back to when I spoke on this in Prague last time I was there with you and talking about that. And I remember, being in this room full of people who, parents struggling with this. And it's hard to go against the stream, you see everybody else is doing this, and yet it doesn't feel right. Something is, or it's not going well, because the child has become addicted. How do you get them back? And there was a lot of people there who had children who were still young. I think there was even someone who was still pregnant and wanting to feel like they were getting ahead of it, and how they make those decisions. And even then it's still challenging because it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's, like I say, it's normal in quotes again. Um, and yet is it what's really needed, and is it healthy, and is it good for us? And yeah, yeah. So it takes courage to face to be different, and to help our children be okay with that. And sometimes they won't be okay, and it doesn't have to be okay. We can say, I know you don't like this answer. Um, it's, but this is something that we as parents have decided, and this is how we're choosing to do things in our family, and it's hard. I get it. It's hard. And you're not going to understand it right now. And I've said that a lot of times to my children for various reasons. It's hard, and it's okay to be upset. Yeah. But this is still the answer. You know, it's making room for that. It's both and. Yeah.
Thank you, Tamara. We have this lecture that you gave on our website and our e-shop, revadeka.cz. There, whoever is interested can go and actually purchase it. And this is about Tamara, about mobile phones. It was a great lecture. We have we have unfortunately time for only one last question. Sorry, we have more here. First question is is it okay to use technologies in school when we are educating children? So some sort of training the AI, and then the teacher as the leading person who is actually taking care of the attachment. Does this sound like something good?
Well, I was actually just listening to something on where they were talking about that in education, and and worded it well, is that, you know, it's not about, as long as they're not replacing the teacher. The way that you're describing it is the teacher is using it as a tool to provide some learning in a way that might not be able to do otherwise. I personally am always a strong proponent of hands-on learning, of experiential learning, of learning uh, uh, through being able to play with, whether it's playing with ideas or actually uh, playing with something physically in terms of learning. So I always say, as long as it's not replacing that, and this is not the only way of learning is through the technology. I think technology can offer some wonderful advantages. So I think it's all about the context, right? Does the teacher using this as a tool, is it helping? Is it keeping the connection with the students? Is it creating a connection to the material? Is it, um, you know, then okay. But is it getting in the way of the child's connection with the teacher? Is it getting in the way of their ability to learn? I think when we went to that place where the children all had their own computers, I know that we started that some of the schools that I'm aware of, you go to the computer class and they all have their own devices. That's a much different story. They're not actually doing their research anymore. They're doing all kinds of things on those computers. That's left to their own devices, literally, and that's not the same thing. So, but what you're describing here, yeah, those would be the questions that I would be asking, but it sounds like that would be using it as a tool. And as long as it's not getting in the way of the other tools that we have at our disposal, which is the world around us and things that are allow us to play with ideas and new learnings, then I don't think that's harmful. But that again, context dependent.
Tamara and Lina and our translator, I think that the last question that came, actually, Lina, you said only one question, but the last question that came is a very beautiful question to end our today's meeting. So
If we have the
I'm
time.
taking, like maybe we can just, we have like 5 minutes, so we can probably ask the
Tamara, is it
question.
okay? Is it
It's
okay for you?
okay?
Do you have
Mhm.
5 more
Oh yeah.
minutes? Yeah, okay.
Okay. So you speak a lot about risks, which assumes that there is some useful application of AI for people's everyday lives. But what if there isn't? What if those risks are by design? There is talk about a shift from the attention economy to the attachment economy. Attention economy to the attachment economy. Rather than warning children and young people about risks, isn't it time to try to erase this technology somehow? Something that nobody needed just 3 years ago, because it still isn't normal, even though it may look that way.
Beautifully said. I don't think it's a question. I think that's a great statement. Yes, that's my answer.
Yes.
Yes, wouldn't it be? Yeah, I think we're going the wrong direction here, and I think we need to back things up. And yeah, yeah, I agree. It's hacking attention and attachment, and there's we need to reclaim. I mean, let's go back to the title of our book. We need to reclaim our children. We need to get back in there and into their lives. Play needs to come back. It's Yeah, we need to make some space for the things that are important in our lives right now, and not for what someone else is deciding is important. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Please,
Wow.
please, nobody cancel ChatGPT just yet.
I am okay with a very dumb dishwasher robot. I don't need an AI for this. In my situation, I'm okay. I'm really happy that right now my dishwasher and my washing machine are working, and I won't need to attend to them, because otherwise I will be doing my dishes, not talking to you today. But yeah.
I don't ask for much. Yeah.
I'm okay with like not very smart dishwasher. Actually, I'm afraid of all those smart features when it decides for me what do I want. I want to decide what I want myself.
Yeah. Well, okay. So we should start finishing. And I would like to, first of all, thank Tamara. Tamara, thank you for coming. We are very much looking forward to seeing you here in Prague on our conference on 13 to 15 in March in Prague. It would be wonderful. Really looking forward to it.
Yes, me too. I look forward to it. It's a little over a month away soon.
Yeah.
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 And then thank you to our wonderful audience with all their questions and reflections. Thank you for being here, listening, for your time.
Thank you for coming and listening to the recording.
Yes. And I will see you in a week, hopefully. And tomorrow in less than a month.
Yes, in
See you
person,
soon.
out of all this online stuff. Like it's really important to to say that
Yes.
it will be offline event, an offline event, which will be very beautiful. That's we will be have an opportunity to meet our village in person, and I'm really looking forward to it. And next week we will have Eva de Gastini here with to meet her, to talk, to have a little bit taste of um, her speaking, and we will speak about schools. So if anyone is schools and attachment-based developmental
Yeah.
approach, so it will be very interesting because she has an enormous experience in this topic. So come,
She
and
does.
we'll be
Yeah.
happy to
That will be a
see
treat
you.
for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So thank
Okay.
you and goodbye.
Hope
Till
to
we
see
see
you.
again. Yeah.
Mhm.
Bye.